Take your marks.
You're listening to the Pullbuoy podcast.
6 days of really exciting competition in the new pool in Sandwell in Birmingham for the 2022 Commonwealth Games. Had just finished, and it was a tremendously exciting competition. In fact, this is the Pullbuoy podcast. Steve here. We're going to have a look back over those events in Birmingham. We don't have Bob. He's busy chatting about diving at the moment and will be for a little while. But Katie is here, so we're going to take a quick whiz through events in Birmingham. Now, I'm going to preface our discussion by saying if we don't mention somebody that you think is deserving of that, that's not because we haven't thought about them. It's just that there are so many, we're bound to forget somebody. So let's just bear that in mind as we go through. Katie, did you enjoy those 6 days of competition?
Yes, I did. I definitely did. It's nice to have so much swimming on recently. I did feel that some of the final sessions were incredibly long, and I couldn't quite understand why they were so long. But equally, I'm now missing it. Now it's finished, so I definitely shouldn't complain.
Well, they crammed an awful lot into each one. They were long, but then there were a lot of finals to get through, a lot of swimming to be done in 6 days, rather than an 8-day or now a 9-day Olympic meet that we will have. So even without semi-finals in the 200s, plenty to get through in the evening sessions. Now let's take a look at some of the highlights that took place over the last few days. I want to start with the men's sprint freestyle and Ben Proud, who retained his 50-metre freestyle title. He won the 50-metre butterfly title that he thinks maybe he was a bit seen off about in Australia when he was disqualified, but he'd won that in 2014, so he regained that one. 350 free titles in a row, and he's really been on fire since the Olympics last year. He didn't get the results he wanted there, but since then he's set the British short course record. He won the world short course title, he's won the world long course title, and now he's won the Commonwealth Games title, and he just looked so good, didn't he, Katie?
Yeah, he looked, I mean, it's the most confident I think I've seen him look for so long, and I think he has struggled in recent years to be firing on both the 50 fly and the 50 free at the same time. And just seeing him dominate, and there was never, I didn't feel like there was ever any question with him in either of those events through the rounds, even if he wasn't, always going in first place. He just looked so good and so confident. It was a brilliant performance.
I mean, he was up playing with the field is perhaps a strong word for it, but in a semi-final of the 53, I mean, he went 21-6, and he basically looked like he had stopped trying at 35 metres. You visibly saw his stroke rate drop.
Yeah, I would like to also give a little bit of credit to Lewis Boris, who I've never seen anyone back end of 50 so much. His second 25, because he was next to Ben in both semi and final, was so good. And I think he was accelerating into the wall just as Ben was easing off. And I think that made it look even more like Ben had taken his foot off the gas. But no, he was in so much control, wasn't he?
And Lewis actually, he didn't or doesn't have the greatest start for the 50. I know he's had historically in his career a bit of an issue with disqualifications for false starts. I think he had one at the Australian Championships when he was guesting there in the heats. So I think it's natural that he might dwell on the blocks a little bit, but yeah, once he's in the water, he's lightning, isn't he? And we haven't had two Englishmen on the podium of the 53. I don't think it's happened ever, but certainly Ben was very surprised and happy to have his teammate with him on the podium, and just fabulous for both of them.
Yeah, and I think that was really great for Lewis particularly. I think he'll probably have been quite disappointed with his 100 free, which was a little way off the British record that he set in at the World Championships. So to finish really strongly like that and on the podium with the 50, which has not typically been his strongest event, as you say, was like a really great way to finish off a difficult meet for him.
And I loved the fact in his interview afterwards, he said that sharing a podium with Ben Proud, the 12-year-old me, is doing cartwheels. So great to do that with someone he's obviously looked up to, and Ben, yeah, absolutely superb this week. Now, they were both very good, both Lewis and Ben, but the standout from the England team at least was Tom Dean. He's super consistent, Mr. Consistent. He was great in Budapest at World Championships. He took it up again here with 7 medals, an English record, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But he was just everywhere. He was swimming brilliantly in every event he tried. It took him until the medley relay to get the gold, because he kept coming across Duncan Scott, and we'll talk about Duncan in a minute as well. But some really, really impressive swimming, and his sprinting in particular, first time under 48 seconds for the 100 free, is looking so good.
Yeah, and he just looked like he was having the best time the whole way through. I mean, every time he came out and heard the home crowd, he was just grinning. Every time he came out to the podium, it just looked like it was Christmas and birthday rolled into one. And, some of those silvers might have been slight disappointments for him, because we've seen him, he's such a good racer. He wants to come out on top. He's got one of the best swimmers in the whole world who's sort of constantly going to be there in Duncan Scott as a rival, but I just think he was having the best time experiencing the home crowd. And the amazing thing that has struck me about him this year is that he just seems to keep adding events to his schedule, and he's amazing at all of them. Like, he's just posting world-class times in literally everything that he does. He's so good at breaststroke, which I think we'd seen a hint of at the ISL, but we're just seeing it now. He's swimming IM more. We're just seeing it more and more. There's so much more to him than just a 200 freestyler. So I think it's really, really exciting. I don't think we've seen what he can do yet.
No, but he's got plenty of. You say he's world class in 200M already. 5th or 6th at Worlds and in silver here behind Duncan. And you look at it and you know that he can improve his backstroke. So rather like Duncan has improved all his legs. As he's focused more on the IM over the last couple of years, Tom's got the opportunity to do the same. So it's going to be really exciting watching how that develops and how that rivalry pushes them both on, because they were there or thereabouts every time they raced, weren't they? I mean, it was Duncan won the gold in the 200 free, Tom got the silver. Duncan won the gold in the 200 AM, Tom got the silver in the 100 free. I thought actually Tom was going to get the better of Kyle Chalmers. He was coming back so fast at the end, but just ran out a bit out of pool. But Tom got the silver and Duncan got the bronze. But they were basically inseparable in those individual events all week. So that rivalry is really going to help them, and they're such good friends as well, which must help make it easier when one of you gets the medal over the other one.
Yeah, that struck me actually in their interviews, how somehow how sort of friendly a rivalry it is. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that means that they don't desperately want to beat the other, and they always want to come out on top. But it's such a, I think for young swimmers in particular, it's such a nice way to see teammates, or in this case they're obviously on rival teams, but interacting and getting on with each other in circumstances which must be sort of quite difficult. If this time last year Tom Dean wasn't really doing the 200 IM. I know he did it a lot as a junior, but it certainly wasn't his focus a year ago, and it was Duncan's, and now it sort of is on Tom's radar, and in a way that must be quite annoying for Duncan, particularly when Tom was finishing like an absolute train like he did in the 200 IM this week. But they just seem to take it in their stride and see it perhaps as something to push them, rather than, someone who's threatening their medal chances. And I think that's a brilliant way to be.
Definitely. Now, 7 medals for Tom makes him the most decorated swimmer from England at a single Commonwealth Games. He got 1 gold in that medley relay where he hung tough to hold off Kyle Chalmers on the freestyle leg, and then 6 silvers, of which 4 came from relays. Now, he overtook 3 people who'd won 6. Brian Brinkley, who won 6 in 1974, Mel Marshall, who won 6 in 2006, and Siobhan Marie O'Connor, who won 6 in Glasgow in 2014. The difference, Katie, do you know what the difference is between the 6 that the 3 of those won and the 7 that Tom won is? Can you think of one? I
assume it will be an additional relay in the form of a mixed relay.
It is exactly that.
They're new to the programme, aren't they?
That's right. So, those 3 guys had 3 relay medals in their 6, and Thomas got 4 relay medals in his 7, which is not at all to do down his performance. He was absolutely brilliant. But who knows how many Siobhan would have won in 2014 with 2 mixed relays? 8 possibly. You never know.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, I suppose on the other side of the coin, it's extra swims, isn't it? Which you have to then recover from and prepare for. So it could go both ways, because extra relays could mean potentially 2 extra relays could mean 4 extra swims. Which is not easy when you've got a packed programme like these guys do. Yeah,
very true. And also shout out to James Guy, who won 6 in Birmingham, again with 4 relays, but another 6 medals. So a lot of people picking up lots of hardware. Duncan was another one, he picked up a load. Now, he did the most ridiculous double on the first night or the second night, whenever it was, the 200 free, 400 IM double. How do you fancy that?
I really don't. I can't. I mean, and they're both events that he is, amongst the fastest in the world at this year, which is insane. It's just, they're both, I can see why he did them both, because he is so good at them both. But just the thought of having to turn that around, and putting together such incredible performances in both, I just couldn't really get my head around it. It was absolutely brilliant. And every time that Duncan Scott swims, I know that we rave about it, but there's good reason for that. He just constantly puts together ridiculous performances, and I don't know how he does it, particularly not forgetting that he's had COVID relatively recently, and it did take a lot out of him. So a really incredible performance.
Yeah, no, it was good. I did wonder if the programme had been the other way around. Maybe he might have dropped the 400 IM, in order to focus on that 200 free and his showdown with Tom. But it wasn't, and he won gold in the 200 free and bronze in the 400 IM. Amazing stuff from him. And he's now Scotland's most decorated athlete at the Commonwealth Games. So absolutely brilliant from him. Now, in amongst all that, we talked about Kyle Chalmers. He's had an interesting week, shall we say, and just want to touch on the drama that he faced with the alleged love triangle and the tabloids digging and all that nonsense that's going on down under. Now, we know Katie because we're very lucky he's been on the London Raw podcast with us, and we had him and Emma on the last season of that together, and that mere act of them being on the podcast at the same time was enough to get the gossip columns down under, putting 2 and 2 together and making about 400. What do you make of this business this week?
It's almost as if somebody is, or the Australian media specifically, are trying to make it as hard as possible for him to do his job and to, achieve everything that he's worked so hard to achieve in the pool. We're, as you say, really lucky to have spoken to him a few times, and he has been incredibly nice, incredibly generous with his time, and seems like a really great guy. So it's been, I feel very lucky that we've had those interactions with him, and I felt really sorry for him this week. I don't think anything that he has done has invited the kind of scrutiny that he's been under, and although obviously I would always like a home nation swimmer on top of the podium, if it wasn't going to be a home nation swimmer, I couldn't have been happier that Kyle Chalmers won that 100 free. He was a man with a point to prove. But I mean, just seeing the sorts of statements that he felt that he had to put out on social media in the middle of a major competition, when he has done nothing but be an incredible asset to Australian swimming, I just thought, I just couldn't understand it, to be honest. And I don't think that he is I think, relatively understated but incredibly successful sports person. I don't think he asks for that kind of attention. I think there are certain sort of types of celebrity where you put yourself out there and you perhaps have to accept that sort of invasion into your private life is inevitable. I don't think that's the case for people who are, just good at a sport. So I just thought it was awful, to be honest. I think he deserves better.
Well, I think I can agree with you on that one, and it was nice that he was able to let his swimming do the talking with gold in that 100 free. So hopefully things will calm down for him a little bit, and he can get some normality and balance and whatever else back in his life over the coming months. Right, let's get back to action actually in the pool. and another Scotsman who really surprised us all this week with his performance. It's his farewell meet. The last time he's going to swim internationally. He's off to do other things now with his life. Ross Murdoch, what a fairy tale farewell meet he had with bronze in the 200 and then snatching a bronze in the 50 breaststroke on the end as well.
Oh, amazing. Ross Murdoch's celebrations and Team Scotland's celebrations for Ross Murdoch have been one of the highlights of this week, I think. Just what a brilliant way to go out on an amazing career. And I know he's had such highs at the Commonwealth Games in the past, but I'm not sure that he was expecting it this year. He's been very honest and said that this is his last meet. He's done some really good interviews. If you get a chance to have a look at some of the interviews that he's done with BBC Scotland this week, he just speaks so well about the challenges that he's faced and how difficult this year has been, and the decision just of whether to compete this year. And then you watch those performances and you watch him sing on the lane rope, celebrating like he's just won gold, accidentally dunking the guy that holds the world record and has just won gold, and couldn't be happier. It's such a brilliant thing to have watched.
Well, he's been brilliant for a long time for Britain and for Scotland, and we'll miss him in the international waters. But what a way to finish! What a way to finish! No, couldn't have written it better if he sat down and written the script himself. Let's be honest. Well, maybe he would have put himself winning gold. I don't know, but yeah, no, a fantastic finish. Now, on the subject of breaststroke. Bob is not here, but undoubtedly if he was, he would be berating us both for our lack of faith, and in particular Ross Davenport, who was on our preview podcast as well, and was unequivocal that James Wilby was not going to beat Adam Peaty. Now, as it turned out, James Wilby did beat Adam Peaty in the 100 metres breaststroke final, and took in reality a very well-deserved gold medal, because he was swimming brilliantly this week, and on the day he was the person who performed, so you can't begrudge him that gold medal. Lots of hoo-ha about Adam and his broken foot going in. I think we felt that even a half fit Adam Peaty would probably have enough to win. Maybe he was a bit less than half fit.
Yeah, I thought there were certain points in certainly the 100, and I would say probably like the second 25 of the 50, where you could kind of see that he'd had a broken foot, as in, and this is coming from someone who knows nothing about breaststroke, so please tell me to be quiet if you disagree, but the propulsion that he normally gets with every leg kick just wasn't quite there, and that's totally fair enough when you've had however many weeks out of the water with a broken foot. I think he's been back in training for about 4 weeks. The fact that he put himself out there and thought, I'm just going to give this meet a shot, is pretty impressive in itself. And I don't think that anyone, least of all Adam himself, should be berating him for not being back to his full completely dominant self. And I was really glad that he picked himself up for that 50, because it's the one title that sort of eluded him throughout. So it's great to see him getting that. But I was so pleased that if Adam wasn't going to take the win, that James Wilby did. I thought James Wilby was brilliant this week. So many strong performances. First of all, that 200 where he just looked absolutely fantastic and took the silver, and then just to take the chance that came his way in the 100, and in quite difficult circumstances, I think, because when there's a shock factor like that, it's quite difficult for you to fully celebrate your own triumph when you've got a teammate next to you that's so disappointed. But I just think Commonwealth Games is a meet of chances, and people do have to take those chances, and that's absolutely what James Wilby did, and well deserved.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty neatly. I mean, like you, I was really pleased that Adam didn't just sack it. You say after the 100, that's it, I'm done. This meet's not working for me. I'm really glad he stayed and battled through the 50, and you could tell what it meant to him at the end. As you say, it was the only title he'd not won previously. And yeah, it meant a lot to him, whether that's because of the trouble he's been through, or the drama this week, or whatever. It really, really meant something to him. So that was really great to see, and we hope, rather like Kyle going away to figure out what's going on and get some balance and whatever in his life, hope Adam can do the same. and find his spark and his love for the sport again. Ready for what comes next. But a bit of drama there, and what also, while we're talking about Adam, he was the one who called it out some fun and games with the starter. Who lots of people said was holding them too long. Lots of people said it was the swimmer's fault. It was a bit of a to and fro on social media after he made those comments. I don't know what you make of it. Interested in very quickly.
It was something that I had noticed before Adam came out and said it, and I did notice it in that race particularly where he made the comment. Some of the holds just seemed really, really long, and I'm not a starter. I've never tried it, but I wouldn't have thought that there would be that swimmers in the Commonwealth Games would be sort of on average moving around on the block more so than any other major meet, and yet the holds on the block did seem to be significantly longer than I'm used to seeing, and I've watched a lot of swimming, so I thought he had a point, to be honest.
Okay, well, I mean, all's well that ends well as far as Adam was concerned, because he got a decent start in the final and he won the gold. But just a bit of an aside there. Right, there's one more person in the men's events I want to bring up, and that's Brody Williams, who he was terrific in Budapest, lifetime best in the 200, but he really moved on in the 100 this week as well. He broke 54 seconds for the first time in the individual, took silver there, and then went on and took gold in the 200. And it's really his breakout year, isn't it? I mean, he's been threatening to be very good, if you like, for a little while. With the 400 aim got him to Tokyo, but the backstroke really is where his sweet spot is. And like you talked about taking chances, he took his chances this week and he was really good.
Yeah, he was another one. I think you had quite a difficult situation with that, being able to fully enjoy his gold, because obviously Luke Greenbank had a disappointing finish in the 200, and I think was back in fifth, having led for a lot of the race. And I think these guys are close and they race each other a lot, and they quite often train together. And I think seeing your teammate be so disappointed can take a bit of the shine off your own triumph. And I think he probably felt a bit that way. But again, it is about taking chances. I thought he had an amazing week. There was a lot of talk, and this is no reflection on Luke at all, because I know that he's had a tough time with illness. But there was a lot of talk about it being difficult to get back up from Worlds. But there were a lot of people who did manage it, and I think Brody was one of the people who managed it the best, actually. Came off a really great Worlds, and it is tough, getting back to training and then tapering again for another major meet. But just dropping more time is brilliant for us, because we need more male backstrokers and female backstrokers actually, but particularly male backstrokers. So to see him getting under that 54 and then taking that gold, and again looking like he was having such a great time in front of the home crowd, it was really great to see.
Certainly was. Now, we've spoken really about the men's side of the competition so far. Let's flip over and talk about the women's events. Start with Katie Shanahan, because she put in some really gutsy swims. I mean, she was battling so hard in that 400 medley. She had a great battle with Freya Colbert for that bronze medal. Both of them actually broke 440 for the first time, but Katie got the touch, so she got a bronze there. She got a bronze in the 200 back as well, which was really nicely done. And she just navigating that move from incredibly successful junior to the senior ranks, and really great for her to get 2 medals, great for her confidence, but also to be swimming so well.
Yeah, I think it feels like long course up until now this year, she'd had a bit of a tricky year. We'd seen her be part of London Roar and bring a huge amount to that team as part of the ISL, which I think was probably one of her first sort of big exposures to international swimming and being around those kind of, I guess, sort of stars day in, day out. Her 400 AM was amazing, and she looked so kind of surprised to find herself on the podium. And then it was actually really cool to see as the week went on, you got to the 200 back, and that was not an easy bronze. She had to beat Minna Atherton, who is a world record holder on the 100 back short course, to get on that podium. And she just looked like she belonged there by then. I feel like it was a sort of fairy tale week, but then in a way it ended up being where she belonged rather than being a sort of novelty week. I think I do feel really excited about how she's going to keep improving, and I think she's probably going to be one of those that I hope we have a sort of Hannah Miley-esque person who's going to be on the British team for years to come.
Well, fingers crossed, because that would be great to have. Staying in the backstroke, someone else who jumped on well from Wales was Wales's Meddy Harris. She won bronze in the individual 100, and she was someone who managed to carry their form over from Budapest. Her times were very comparable with what she'd swum there. Just missed out in the 50, but terrific first season of senior international competition continues for her.
Yeah, she's been so impressive because she, like we've talked about before, and sorry to use a swimming analogy, but she has really been thrown in at the deep end, I think, in terms of international swimming. And
please don't.
No, I know, but like, I mean, I don't know what else I could call it, a baptism of fire. There we go. We just, at Worlds, there was so much sort of put on her in terms of, relay duties and so on. And she's just taken it all in her stride, and it's always been like, yeah, of course, this is what is being asked of me, and of course I'm going to perform. And it was exactly the same commies. And I think we talked a lot about in the preview podcast about having the chance to represent Wales and Scotland and England, and that you don't get many chances to do that. And I felt that she was one of the people who really sort of embraced that and wanted to bring home a medal for Wales. The women's 100 back was, I would say, one of the highest quality. Well, actually, there's so many high quality women's events, but it's again really not an easy one to get on the podium. She had the Olympic champion and the former world champion, I think, both in Kylie Mass and Kaylee McEwen. So it was not an easy race. So brilliant to see her up there.
Yeah, very much so. And I want to give a shout out to Lauren Cox, who you talked about deep ends and baptisms of fire, and I think she had the sort of English equivalent of that this week, because she was the only women's backstroker that England selected. I know Alicia Wilson ended up swimming one of the heats backstroke legs, but that meant she knew she was going to have to swim the medley relay and probably the mixed medley relay and all those things. But she was great all week. I think, and I'll probably have got this wrong, but at least 4 lifetime bests through the week, 3 in the 100 through the rounds, and then another one in the 50 back final where she missed a medal by 2 100ths or something. So really encouraging debut for her, and I hope we can see more of her kind of develop, because you can't argue with someone who goes to their first international and does lifetime bests. So well done. Well done.
Really, really not easy. And I was really impressed by her as well, especially that 50 at the end. It was a great swim, and the more women's backstrokers we can have in the pipeline, the better, I think. Yeah,
definitely. Now, we want to talk about the women from the home nations that won medals, but unfortunately we didn't have many. I mean, we've spoken about Meddy, we've spoken about Katie, but beyond them there's only 3, I think. So Imogen Clark, brilliant in the 50 breaststroke. I think it's such a shame that we don't give her the opportunity to go to World Championships, but politics is what it is. And then Abby Wood, who's coming back from illness, bronze in the 200 AM. She looked really happy with that, so that was good. But I think we spoke about her on the preview. Laura Stevens, finally put it together when she needed to, and swam the brilliant race in the 200 fly final.
Yeah, we'd been waiting for that one because she does drop like great times sort of in season. I think we saw her do a great swim at the Mare Nostrum, but then unfortunately didn't sort of quite back it up at Worlds, when I know she would have really liked to have done. So to see her get onto that podium, which was there were some really tough Aussies in that race. She looked absolutely delighted, and I think we felt that for her, because I think it's been a tough road.
Yeah, but a difficult week for the women. I mean, it felt to me a little bit like certainly the ones who've been to Worlds maybe didn't. Meddy did, obviously we've said, but a lot of them maybe found that move on straight to another competition a bit more difficult. I mean, I don't know. It's difficult to say because everyone will be have different preparation, and I'm sure people have been ill and everything. You never know what's going on in people's lives, but it's just that cycle, I guess, that the men's side through the home nations is very strong at the moment, and maybe the women's is a little less so.
Yeah, and I think part of it is a reflection on the fact that this is the only competition where we see 3 per nation, and unfortunately on the women's side there are a couple of nations in the Commonwealth where they're incredibly strong and deep on for swimming. So we've got Australia, which I'm sure we'll come on to, in the women's freestyle events are just world dominant. South Africa in the breaststroke events, because normally we'd be talking about Molly and Molly Renshaw and Abby Wood sort of probably finishing on the podium in the 200 breaststroke, but when you've got 3 South Africans who are as good as they are, and an Australian to factor in, it suddenly becomes more difficult to get those spaces. Where we don't have people from the US, we've just got an extra Australian. So I think it's not easy, but I think looking at the results overall, it does show that currently I think our men's swimming is just in a slightly better place than perhaps our women's is.
I think that's a fair comment about the depth, and the Australian women's freestyle in particular was awesome this last week. I mean, they won clean sweeps in the 50, 100, 200, 800 freestyle, and thankfully, Summer McIntosh prevented them from a complete clean sweep of the freestyle with silver in the 400. But their sprinters were good. Ariane Titmus was good. It was just awesome to watch. And of course, to top it all off, they set a world record in the 4x200 freestyle with an unbelievable anchor from Titmus, 152.8. I'm going to say 152.82, fastest ever. I mean, she was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think it's probably worth pointing out as well that it's not like we're bad in a lot of those events. We're not so strong in the longer distance freestyles, but we've got some world class swimmers in the 50, the 100, and the 200, and we can't break into that top 3. It is just a demonstration of how incredible the Australians are. If it was 6 per nation, I don't know if we'd get anyone in the top 6. They are that good on 100 free. It's really sort of unprecedented how good they are. So I think there were sort of limited chances for us there, and we did our best to take them. We had Anna Hopkin and Freya Anderson in the finals of the 50, 100 and 200, but it's just the strength of what they were up against, really.
Yeah, phenomenal depth in Australian women's freestyle at the moment. So no shame in being bettered by them, certainly at the moment. Couple of other things to just sort of talk about before we wrap things up. I wanted to make mention of the Northern Ireland performance. We don't necessarily talk about those guys as much on this podcast because many of them swim for Ireland in international competition, but obviously having the option to swim for Northern Ireland here. So they had a great week because they won their first ever swimming medal. I've lost a bit of paper. We get first ever swimming medal in the pool in the men's S900 backstroke, and Barry McClements took bronze. Then they won their first ever gold when Bethany Firth won the S14 200 free. And then Dan Whiffin pops up at the end to complete the set with silver in the 1500. So terrific to see Northern Ireland do well. And Dan in particular, he some brilliant race, huge PB. So easily could have been gold, but someone else did an even bigger PB on the day with Sam Short. So terrific to see.
Yeah, and I mean, it just feels like Dan, every single time he gets in the pool now, he breaks a record. He's just improving all the time. And we've seen him impressing at Worlds, and I was really rooting for him to get the gold in the 1500, but you can't control what anyone else does. He did a brilliant swim. It was just that somebody was, as you said, Sam Short from Australia did it, and he dropped even more time. So you can't complain about that. It was great. I think they had a really great performance, and I enjoyed Mary Peters presenting that gold medal to Bethany Firth. I thought it was great.
Yeah, terrific. And a shout out to Victoria Caston as well, who broke the Irish record in the 200 free and took one of Michelle Smith's Irish records off the book. So very well done to her. Because, there were a lot of Irish records, but that one particularly stands out, I think, because it's good to see those sort of slightly tainted records being wiped from the books. Okay.
Heavily tainted.
Oh, all right then. Heavily tainted records being removed from the books. There we are. One other slightly quirky thing that happened this week, something I've never seen before. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, Katie, but the medley relay on the last day, South Africa did not start on the results sheet because one of their 4 swimmers for the heats didn't make it to the pool. Had transport problems, got stuck in traffic, whatever, and we don't really know what happened. But they only had 3 swimmers, and this not being summer league, they couldn't get one of them to swim twice. But I'm led to believe that they had a go at trying to get a time trial organised so they could slot back in if they made the grade, or at least didn't get disqualified, as it turned out. But they weren't allowed to do that. I know we spoke about this on the day, but I can't come up with anything similar. The nearest equivalent I could come up with was Fran Halsall and Jeanette Otterson and Alexandra Harrison-Menier getting on a bus in Rio and being taken to the wrong stadium and then reorganising the programme to move to 50 free semi-finals so that they could actually swim them. But I don't know what to make of this. I mean, do you think they should have got a time trial?
I think it completely depends on the circumstances. I think it's, an organised event bus taking somebody to the wrong place or being massively delayed, or that getting stuck in traffic is quite different from somebody thinking that they've got a little bit more time than they have, and or oversleeping and sort of missing their alarm. And I think maybe one of the circumstances might justify a time trial and the others wouldn't. The difficulty is 3 out of 4 managed to get there on time, and one didn't. And I think that's probably where a lack of sympathy might kick in. I suppose the most ridiculous thing about the whole saga is that only 8 teams turned up anyway. Obviously, if this last person from South Africa would have turned up, that would have been 9 and would have justified the heats. But as it was, there were probably quite a lot of people swimming an extra race that they didn't need to do because there weren't actually enough teams to justify needing a heat and then a final. But what can you do about that? And hopefully that means a few more people got medals. So there we go.
Well, indeed. And I think Canada would have been quite happy if there hadn't been heats, because they obviously got disqualified for another thing I don't think I've ever seen. Yeah, another thing I don't think I've ever seen, a false start on backstroke. So
yeah, very odd.
Although,
I mean, there was quite a lot of oddness going on this week, wasn't there?
There was. I mean, actually thinking about it, I think Matt Welsh got disqualified for a false start in backstroke in 2002 in the 200 back, which obviously James Goddard went on to win. So maybe I have seen that before, but not. But what? Sorry, on the subject of oddness, because there was another odd one, and I don't know if you spotted this when it happened, but the heats of the 50 back, and I've completely forgotten the young lady's name, so I'm going to apologise. But one of the Northern Irish swimmers in her heat was due to be in lane 8, and Maggie McNeil was due to be in lane 7, and Maggie scratched, and this Northern Irish lady swam in Maggie McNeil's lane and came up on the results as with her time for Maggie and her as a did not start. So I don't think I'd ever seen that before, but luckily some common sense was shown by the organisers and they switched the names around rather than disqualifying her for swimming in the wrong lane.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think I would be tempted to impersonate somebody as fast as Maggie McNeil, but I'm not sure I'd be very convincing.
No, probably not who you would choose to impersonate. I'm sure it was an honest error with an empty lane and just thinking she was at the end and what have you. But it was, as I say, good that common sense saw the light of day. Anyway, I think time to draw things to a close. What last thought on the Commonwealth Games?
I think it was probably reminiscent of a Commonwealth Games, if you know what I mean. Some really incredible performances. Some, I suppose, there are some events that are weaker than we would generally see at major international competitions, or perhaps it's that those who are on the podium, there tends to be quite a sort of big drop off, after the top few finishes, but I really enjoyed it. I thought there were some great performances by home nations. I think we probably not surprised to see a few people drop off on suffering from the difficult double of Worlds and Commonwealths, but mostly massively entertaining. Some really great swims, and I feel pretty excited about everyone coming back together as a Great Britain team.
Do you think we'll see any dropouts from that European competition it's 8 days away, 7 days away?
I imagine we'll see a certain Adam Peaty drop out.
Well,
I think he's been pretty clear that
we know he's not going.
Done. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a lot of people who we might have, who we would sort of generally expect to be selected to that team had already turned down their place. I think we probably don't know the extent to which I've seen a few swimmers mentioning that they've been ill, whether it's COVID or otherwise, in between, either sort of in between Worlds and Commonwealth Games, or just sort of shortly before Commonwealth Games if they didn't necessarily do both. And I think that could impact, who we see go on and swim at Europeans. I think quite a lot of people have mentioned this week that they've realised that this is potentially their last chance for a big break. So maybe more people will focus on recovery and decide that Europeans is not for them. And I think that would be a pretty good decision in a lot of cases. Well,
it's only 2 weeks. Come on, you've got to wait 2 weeks for a rest, surely.
I think, but when you get so little rest a year,
I know.
I think taking 2 weeks off your break is a massive deal.
No, very true. Well, we will wait and see who is going to make the trip to Rome. Hopefully, there's a lot of people who haven't swum either of the meets before, which was good to see in the British team. So they will obviously go and hopefully will perform well, and we'll see who goes with them. But we'll talk about that another day. Katie, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on Birmingham.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back, as I say, after Europeans now, I think, to have a look at what happens in Rome, see who went, see who the new movers and shakers are in British swimming from the new people making their debut. In the meantime, you can find me on social media at Pullbuoy or at Pullbuoy UK on Instagram if you want to let us know what you think. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. We'd very much appreciate it. But until we're back, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Pullbuoy podcast. For more episodes, visit www.pullbuoy.co.uk/podcast.